The storm system that's brewing could unleash chaos across the region, so it's absolutely crucial to take all necessary precautions. The eastern and southeastern United States are bracing for a fierce barrage of extreme weather that could bring everything from powerful storms to heavy snow and torrential rains. These conditions aren't just severe, they could potentially hold the region hostage, causing widespread disruptions. Expect the winds to howl and the skies to darken as this monstrous weather system moves through, packing a punch that could disrupt travel, power, and daily life for millions. Snowfall could blanket vast areas, creating dangerous travel conditions, while the rains could quickly turn into flash floods, overwhelming creeks and rivers. Prepare for the unexpected, stay updated with weather warnings, secure your home, and ensure you're ready to face whatever comes next. This isn't a storm to take lightly, and it's critical to stay vigilant as the situation evolves. In today's video, we're going to dive into the upcoming weather pattern. We have the onset of extremely cold air that is basically here now. It's going to worsen through the day tomorrow and into Wednesday, depending on whether you're east or west. But for the central states, we're already reaching the peak of the cold. For the eastern states, it will continue to get worse over the next 24 to 36 hours. So expect more cold air on the way. On top of that, we also have a snowstorm affecting the deep south. Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, and possibly Virginia are all in the mix. We're starting to see models shift northward, which gives some hope to South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, especially compared to yesterday's forecast. So there's some good news for you all. However, I still think it's really uncertain. There's some concern. For example, the Canadian model, which we won't show today, basically shows no snow for South Carolina, North Carolina, or Virginia. As I've mentioned before, if a model shows something, it's possible. So there's still a chance that these areas will see very little snow, but we also have models showing 4 to 6 inches for some areas in Eastern Carolina, and even 2 to 4 inches for some parts of my region. There are other models showing no snow at all, and we're now just 24 hours away from the onset of snowfall for these areas. It's pretty crazy. Looking ahead, we also expect a pattern change later in January into early February where warmer air will move in. It won't be a total heat wave, but it will definitely be warmer than it has been. We'll discuss this as well, starting with the 6 to 10 day outlook, which covers January 26th through 30th. So 6 days from now marks the beginning of this shift. Sometimes I get comments asking why I show cold today and then warm the next day. That's because the forecast is always moving forward. Yesterday's forecast covered January 25th through 29th, but now we're looking at the 26th through 30th. This is always evolving. We expect cold air in the west, which we call a negative PNA, and warmth will shift into the east as a result. We'll see warmth building throughout the north central, south central, and even parts of the southeast, with near normal temperatures across much of the east. We've been talking about this for a few days, but I see the upcoming pattern as a revolving door. It won't strictly be cold or warm for this 4-day period. It'll alternate between cold fronts and warmer spells. We'll warm up, then a cold front will come through and it will warm up again after that. It will be a revolving door type of pattern. Precipitation will increase as we see low pressure systems moving through many of these areas. The warmer temperatures will bring more humidity and moisture overall, leading to above average precipitation. It looks a lot like an El Nino pattern, which is no surprise since we're currently in one. In an El Nino pattern, we usually see the southwest, south central, and southeast experiencing above average precipitation, while the northwest and north central areas get below average precipitation. It's a classic El Nino look, which is pretty interesting. The 8 to 14 day outlook shows that the warmth could completely shift into the east by January 28th through February 3rd, with neutral conditions out west. Precipitation is still expected to rise in the east and south central, while the west remains drier. However, the northwest might see slightly wetter conditions, possibly moving closer to a La Nina-like pattern. Now, let's look at the past 20 days of January. For the first 2/3 of the month, we've seen far below average temperatures across much of the country, and we expect about 5 more days of colder weather, though 3 or 4 might be a more realistic estimate. When we look at the entire month of January, it's going to be far below average overall. The cold will deepen in the coming days, making January very cold with a warmer trend to the west overall. Let's now take a look at the European model. I almost said the El Nino model, but it's actually the European model. I'm a little rambly today because it's National Championship Day, and you all know I'm a big Ohio State fan, so I'm extra excited. As we look at today's forecast, I'll fast forward a few hours because by 1 a.m. tonight, we expect snowfall to begin in Texas and Louisiana. We have certainty about heavy snowfall between Houston and southern Louisiana, but there are still huge question marks for the eastern forecast. It's crazy, but once the low pressure system is initialized, we should get more information. Typically, the location of the low pressure center is the most important factor, but we also have so much high pressure in these areas, which will actually be the main influence. The forecast has shown that these high pressure systems have trended further southwest over time, which is allowing the storm to creep up the southeast coast more. This shift is increasing snowfall amounts for the region. We discussed this yesterday. The east-west movement of these high pressure systems controls the forecast, and we've seen that westerly movement take place, which has brought the storm in as predicted. By tomorrow afternoon, we're expecting Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, especially the southern areas, to be heavily impacted. Houston could receive over 6 inches of snow. Truly crazy stuff. This storm is historic, and for many areas, it's a once in 100 years event. I've gotten a lot of comments saying I only talk about the South, but it's not my fault. The weather is driving the conversation. If there was more active weather in the North, that's where my focus would be. I always talk about major weather events, and right now this storm is the major event. I'm not going to come on here and talk about how cold and dry it is in the Northeast because most people are already aware of that. But with storms like this, there's a lot of uncertainty and discussion, which is why it gets more attention. Once the storm is over, we'll likely shift our focus to the north and west as those areas become more active. Moving into Tuesday night around 10 p.m., snowfall may begin on the eastern side of the storm. Let me walk through the model runs. Here's the 12Z European model from yesterday, and here's the 12Z run from today. We've seen a noticeable northern shift in the forecast, which could impact areas in North Carolina and Eastern Virginia more than initially expected. This is something we'll continue to monitor over the next 12 to 24 hours. As the storm develops, it could still shift south, but these northern trends are typical. And it wouldn't surprise me if we see this shift continue. Despite the uncertainty, we're watching these northern trends closely as the storm isn't locked into anything yet. After this storm, we'll likely see cold weather on Friday and Saturday, but we may start to see some warm-ups in the east, along with a Gulf Deep South system potentially moving through. This could bring a snowfall threat for parts of the mid-Atlantic, possibly around Monday, January 27th. However, as of now, it doesn't look like a major snow event. That could change, though, and we'll keep an eye on it. Afterward, we're looking at a brief cool down followed by a warmer pattern starting around Tuesday, January 28th. By Wednesday, temperatures should warm up again, but another cold blast may move in from the north toward the end of the week. We could also see a small snow system affecting the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast, especially between Saturday, February 1st and Sunday, February 2nd. This is still far out, so we'll need to watch for updates. Looking even further ahead, there's a massive warm-up expected for February 4th. A huge trough in the west and a strong ridge in the east would lead to unseasonably warm temperatures in the east and unseasonably cold temperatures in the west. This could set up severe weather conditions, including thunderstorms in the Midwest and Deep South, while the upper Midwest and northern plains could see snowfall. While this is still speculative, the models indicate that something like this could transpire. The specific date and location aren't as important right now, but this pattern shift could be coming. There's strong reason to believe that this is a likely scenario. The GFS model has also trended north over the last 12 hours, showing snowfall as far north as the Delmarva region. Virginia and North Carolina are back on the radar for snow in the GFS as well. So almost all models have shifted north, except for the Canadian models. The Canadian model CMC is known for being a bit unreliable, and the RGEM model, which is the Canadian version of the short-range GFS, shows much lighter snowfall for South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia, staying further south. The RGEM model is often good at times, but right now it's not in agreement with the other models. Once the storm ends, we might see a coastal system around Thursday or Friday, which could bring some snowfall to eastern North Carolina. The models have been shifting back and forth with different looks for this, but there's still potential for snowfall. If you're in this area, stay alert for any changes as it's close to being a hit. Any additional snowfall that falls could accumulate on top of existing snow. The current forecast is tracking a major winter storm that is expected to bring potentially historic snowfalls to areas of the Gulf Coast and Southeast. Regions not accustomed to significant snowfall, this quick-hitting storm will have substantial impacts, with snow beginning overnight and continuing into tomorrow, eventually affecting the Southeast by tomorrow night. Even if you're not directly impacted by snow, the storm will usher in dangerously cold temperatures across much of the country for the rest of the week. Key weather points: cold temperatures and wind chills. A large portion of the country is below freezing, with many areas, particularly in the upper Midwest, experiencing wind chills as low as 44 degrees Fahrenheit below zero in places like Minnesota. Chicago feels like -9 degrees Fahrenheit, while New Orleans and Houston are even seeing wind chills below freezing. The Deep South, including Texas and northern Florida, will experience significant cold for the coming days. Coastal areas of California, Arizona, and South Florida are the exceptions, with milder temperatures. Winter storm warnings. Winter storm warnings stretch across South Texas, northern Florida, southern Georgia, and parts of South Carolina. These warnings cover much of the Gulf region, except for the Florida Peninsula, which is under winter weather advisories. The storm will bring snow, ice, and frigid conditions to these areas, with the potential for extreme weather in Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. The forecast predicts brutal cold with wind chills that will make it dangerous to be outside, especially in the upper Midwest. Storm development and movement. The storm is rapidly moving across the Gulf Coast. Moisture from the Pacific and Mexico will fuel the storm as it tracks eastward. By tomorrow morning, the storm will continue pushing across Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, causing significant snowfall and ice accumulation, particularly along the Gulf Coast. The snow and ice will move out to sea by Wednesday morning. Behind the storm, an additional cold blast will move through, but nothing as organized or intense as this system. Snowfall and ice accumulation, southern impact, Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi will be the hardest hit areas. Snowfall could reach up to a foot in some regions of Louisiana, with the possibility of more in localized areas. Heavy snow combined with winds will create near blizzard conditions in parts of these states. However, ice and sleet will complicate forecasting, especially in deep South Texas, where freezing rain may reduce snow totals but create hazardous driving conditions. Houston, Galveston, and the surrounding areas will experience significant disruptions, including power outages and difficult travel conditions. Forecast models. Different weather models predict varying amounts of snow, with the N model showing around a foot in some areas of Louisiana. However, the model also predicts more mixed precipitation, particularly in deep South Texas, reducing the amount of snow and causing dangerous ice accumulation, Winter weather advisories are also in effect for parts of the Carolinas, with possible snow in the upcoming days. Long-term outlook, cold stretch and recovery. After the storm moves out, expect a prolonged period of cold weather, with temperatures not expected to return above freezing in the Gulf states until Thursday. Even then, a recovery will be slow, especially in areas like Houston and New Orleans, which will take longer to return to normal. California fire concerns. Alongside the winter storm, Southern California is dealing with dangerous fire conditions due to the dry, windy weather coming off the mountains. This could lead to critical fire risks over the next few days, adding to the extreme weather events occurring in the West. In summary, while this storm is impacting regions that typically don't experience snow, the combination of snow, ice, and cold temperatures will lead to significant disruptions. Stay warm, stay safe, and don't let the winds get the best of you. Winter's fury is coming and it's here to stay.